Millionaire saved an old man from abusive cops. 10 minutes later the police trembled answering a call. Light rain drizzled down. A hunched old man, skinny and frail, shuffled along, his tattered coat dangling with loose threads. His trembling hands reached toward a dirty white plastic bag stuck to a rain-soaked public trash can. His faded eyes fixated on it. "This bag still smells like coke," he mumbled. "Might be a little left." He reached out, but before he could grab it, a sudden kick smashed into his face like lightning from a clear sky. A polished black steel-toe boot struck his left cheekbone, sending him flying and slamming his head against the edge of the curb. A dry, dull thud echoed. Blood spread across the puddles. "Filthy scum. Who gave you permission to dig through trash in front of the administrative center?" a cold, contemptuous male voice barked. The man wearing a police uniform was young, tall, muscular. His expression was sharp as a blade. On his chest, Eric Martin, patrol officer for Manhattan District. A young woman in a light brown coat froze. She gasped, "Oh my God. What did you just do?" Eric turned, eyeing her with disdain. "Who are you to interfere? Back off. These types need to be taught a lesson." The old man lay motionless on the ground, blood dripping from his lips, his eyes still open. I just wanted leftover water," he murmured, reaching feebly for the plastic bag. Eric stepped forward, lifting his foot again. But this time, a sharp voice cut through the air. "That's enough." A strong female voice rang out. From a black Bentley parked nearby, a woman in her 40s, wearing a cream-colored long coat and crimson heels, strode over. Her eyes blazed, chin lifted with authority. "What's your name?" she demanded. "Badge number?" Eric scoffed. "Isabel Turner. The tech queen. Please, go back to your Silicon Valley. This has nothing to do with you. You're wrong. This city belongs to me as much as it belongs to that man. The police have no right to kick an elderly man trying to find leftover water. The police are here to serve." A guy nearby wearing headphones, filming with his phone, nudged his friend. "Matthew, zoom in on his face. That's Isabel. This is gonna blow up on Twitter." Eric sneered. "You people are only good at filming. Do you even know how many times that guy's stolen stuff or messed up public spaces?" A woman nearby spoke up, "That's not true. I've seen him at St. Patrick's Cathedral. He never begs for money, just asks for water. Never caused trouble." A little girl tugged on her mother's sleeve, "Mom, there's a lot of blood. I'm scared." Isabel approached the old man and knelt down. "What's your name? Can you hear me?" His lips moved. "Albert." She turned and shouted, "Call an ambulance. Now." A young man nodded and pulled out his phone. 911. "Yes, we have an elderly man with a serious head injury, bleeding. We're at the corner of 5th Avenue and Park Avenue." Eric looked around. Every eye was on him. No one said a word, but every gaze was judgmental, cold, full of outrage. "You don't understand. I followed protocol. Homeless individuals pose health risks. I had the right to defend myself," he insisted. Isabel didn't respond. She pulled out her phone, filmed his face clearly, and read aloud, "Eric Martin. Badge number 172C. I'm filing a formal complaint with Internal Affairs." Another officer ran over stocky, buzzcut. "Eric. What happened?" "Officer Johnson," Isabel said, turning to him, "you arrived just in time. Your colleague just kicked an elderly man in the face, over a plastic bag." Johnson looked uneasy. "You again, Eric." Eric clenched his jaw, his face red. "Spare me the theatrics." The sound of sirens echoed down the street. The crowd parted. EMTs jumped out and loaded the old man onto a stretcher. "Facial trauma," possible intracranial bleeding. Blood pressure low, one paramedic reported. Isabel walked with them but paused to look back at Eric. I won't let this be swept under the rug. As the ambulance sped off through the drizzle, Eric stood frozen in the middle of the street. Murmurs started spreading. Did you see his face? Pale as hell. At first I thought those viral videos were fake. Not anymore. With Isabel involved, he's screwed. The rain fell harder. Eric walked away, each step heavy as stone. A young man passed him and muttered just loud enough. Steel boots, stone heart. Slam. The door shut behind him. Eric stepped into his small third-floor apartment on 125th Street. The room was cold, dark, and uncomfortably quiet. He threw his police cap onto the table, kicked a chair so hard it rolled into the wall. He opened the fridge, grabbed a cheap bottle of liquor. Twisted off the cap and drank. The alcohol burned his throat, but not as badly as the videos flooding the internet. His face, his boot, his kick. His phone rang. Eric looked at the screen. Papa. He didn't answer. A text came through. Causing trouble again? I told you to keep your damn mouth shut. Eric didn't reply. He slumped into a chair, eyes blank. In his mind, old voices echoed. St. Joseph's Orphanage, 20 years ago. You little piece of trash. Who told you to take a second carton of milk? A shout rang out, followed by the snap of a leather belt. A scruffy, hollow-cheeked 7-year-old boy crouched on the cold tile floor. His tiny arms wrapped around his head. But no tears. Just empty eyes, numb, not afraid. Father Raymond. I'm hungry, he whispered. The tall priest, dressed in black, stared down. Hungry? You should be hungry for morality. No one loves you, Eric. Even your mother didn't want you. Eric said nothing. The words had sunk in long ago, dull and familiar. Behind him, another boy, curly hair, brown skin, whispered, Hey Eric, you're tough. But stupid. I never take more food, even if I'm starving. You get whipped if you do. Shut up, Kevin, Eric muttered. You're afraid of belts. I'm afraid of hunger. Kevin chuckled. One day, you'll be the one doing the whipping. Harder than Father Raymond ever did. Present day. Eric lit a cigarette, inhaling deeply. His phone vibrated again. This time it was Officer Johnson. What? Eric answered, voice hoarse. You're suspended. Temporarily. There's an order from higher up. You mean from my father, right? He laughed bitterly. Raymond Martin, Chief Internal Affairs Attorney. The holy martyr of New York City. Johnson sighed. I know you've had a rough past. But Eric, you can't keep using your pain as an excuse to hurt people. I didn't hurt anyone. I taught a piece of garbage how to survive in this city. Johnson's voice softened. Some people don't need to be taught. They need help. Eric fell silent for a moment. Then hung up. 1 week later, NYPD Manhattan District Headquarters. Eric sat in the Internal Affairs hearing room. Across from him, Inspector Lucy Miller, City Prosecutor Victor Parker, and NYPD Rep Captain Douglas. Lucy flipped through a file. Eric Martin. 3 complaints in the past 6 months. All dismissed. But this time there's video, Victor cut in, not even looking up. Eric leaned back. I followed safety protocols. Homeless individuals carry infection risks. I had the right to defend myself. Lucy glared. Defend yourself against an old man picking up a plastic bag? Captain Douglas added, plenty of officers here grew up poor. None of them behave like you. No one else was forced to eat soap for wetting the bed. No one else got beat for dreaming about their mother, Eric said sharply. I didn't choose to be born in St. Joseph's orphanage. Lucy studied him for a long moment, then said softly, so why didn't you use that pain to protect the vulnerable, instead of stepping on them? Eric didn't respond. He turned his face away. Something cracked inside him. That night the rusty nail bar. Slow, sad blues music played. Eric sat alone at the bar, his bottle half empty. A man approached bookish, wearing glasses and a moss-green sweater. "Anyone sitting here?" he asked. "Go ahead. Everyone's happy to sit next to the disgraced asshole." The man smiled gently. "I'm Ethan, freelance journalist. I'm writing about police violence. I'd like to hear your side." Eric smirked. "Trying to expose me in your article?" "No," Ethan replied. "I just want to understand. That's all. There's nothing to understand. Just a kid raised by a belt. And when he grew up, he became the belt." Ethan nodded slowly. "Have you ever wondered, what would have changed if that belt had softened?" Eric let out a bitter laugh. "Soft things break. In New York City, you either stomp, or get stomped." Ethan poured more whiskey into his glass. "Or you learn to stand without stepping on anyone." South Bronx slums 3 days later. A message from an anonymous account popped up on Eric's phone. "Come to Prospect Avenue. Someone you once beat wants to meet." He went. A damp alleyway, walls covered in graffiti. A young man with platinum blonde hair stepped out from the shadows. "Hello, Officer Martin." Eric squinted. "Did I beat you up?" The guy rolled up his sleeve, revealing a long scar on his forearm. 7 months ago. I got arrested for singing at the subway. You kicked me 3 times. Eric stared at the scar, blinking. "I don't remember." "Doesn't matter," the young man shrugged. "I just wanted to say, I forgive you. But I don't forget." Eric looked at him, as if to ask, why? The guy gave a sad smile. "Because I was also a kid who got hit in an orphanage. But I chose differently than you. I chose forgiveness to survive." Night. Eric's apartment. He opened a drawer. Inside was a small wooden box. He took out an old photo, a little boy standing beside a Christmas tree at St. Joseph's orphanage. A crooked smile, sunken eyes. Under the photo was a crumpled note, written in pencil. "My name is Eric. I promise I won't become a bad person." He let out a dry laugh. A laugh with no taste. A 10-year-old's promise, damn it. He reached for his lighter. But instead of burning it, he put it back. Then picked up the phone. Late Night Counseling Center. "This is Clara. How can I help you?" After a long silence, Eric whispered, "I can't sleep. I'm scared of my dreams." 1 week after the assault on Mr. Albert, New York City trembled. Not just from TV headlines, but from debates on social media, cafe counters, and office corridors. The name Eric Martin was no longer a quiet name in the police registry. It had become the new symbol of police brutality. And the one who sparked the storm? Isabel Turner. Morning Turner Tech Headquarters, the tech company founded by Isabel. Floor 18. Clear glass walls. A gentle breeze rustled the leaves of a Japanese bonsai beside her desk. "Isabel, the New York Times wants an exclusive interview." "They say it'll be front page," said her personal assistant, Lucy Mitchell, laying out the day's schedule. Isabel didn't look up. "Not necessary. I don't need to say anything more. The video already spoke. The police are starting to push back through the media. They're accusing you of using this to boost your image." She looked up, eyes sharp as steel. "If standing beside a bleeding old man is called self-promotion, maybe the world needs a serious cleanup." Lucy stayed silent. After a pause, she asked softly, "Why did you stop your car that day?" Just coincidence? Isabel stood, walked to the window, and looked down at the street. Her eyes dimmed. I was heading to the hospital to sign a pledge for donating emergency medical equipment. I was going to cancel. But then. She gave a faint, ironic smile. Then I saw him. Mr. Albert collapsed like an animal. And I couldn't not get out. At Joe's coffee shop, Eric sat in the corner. Gray coat, dark circles, haggard face. Across from him sat a middle-aged man in a black suit, posture stiff, Raymond Martin, his father. How did it come to this? Raymond asked, voice low but heavy. You're not someone who cares, Eric replied, pouring sugarless coffee into his mug. I'm the one who kept you from getting suspended twice. That gives me the right to care. Eric smirked. You kept me around to protect the Martin name. Not because you give a damn about me. Raymond was silent for a moment. This time, you won't walk away. Isabel Turner isn't someone whose story you can suppress. She has fame, money, and purpose. Purpose? Eric scoffed. What, she thinks she's some kind of saint? No, Raymond said. But at least she can tell the difference between human blood and dirty water. Bellevue Hospital Recovery Room. Isabel stepped into room 14. Mr. Albert lay in the bed, eyes closed, ventilator hissing in rhythm. A nurse named Beatrice adjusted the 4-line. Has he woken up yet? Isabel asked softly. Still weak. But he moaned a little when we changed the bandages, Beatrice replied. He's old. One fall like that could be the last. Isabel walked to the bedside. She looked at the weathered face, the deep bruises, the time-carved lines on his skin. She placed a small bundle of lavender on the bedside table. My name is Isabel. I'm the one who brought you to the hospital that day. Suddenly, the old man's fingers twitched. His eyes opened slightly. You the girl with the Bentley? His voice was hoarse and broken. Isabel smiled softly. Yes. That's me. He furrowed his brow. I'm still alive. Yes. We're not letting you go just yet. The old man exhaled. Those cops, they're scared of you. They're not scared of me, Isabel replied. They're just scared of being seen at the wrong moment. The media firestorm raged on. At the NBC News office, senior anchor Michael Brown briefed the team. Today's segment, Police Brutality: Where is Justice? Focus on the fact that the victim was elderly, homeless, and once saved a child's life. A young reporter, Rachel, asked, where'd that info come from? Isabel sent it. She hired a legal team to investigate Mr. Albert's past. Apparently, he once sold his house to pay for a sick child's treatment at an orphanage. Not related to him. Rachel exhaled. If that's true, then this isn't just about violence. It's about conscience. At the police station, Eric was called into mandatory counseling. The therapist, Dr. Alexander Clark, around 40, wore a white shirt and had a calm demeanor. Mr. Martin. I'm not here to judge. I just want to understand how you're feeling. Eric sat with his arms crossed. There's nothing to say. Alexander flipped open a file. You've had mild depression, insomnia, and tendencies toward aggression under stress. That's my father's doing, Eric said sharply. He's the one who dumped me in all those damn records. Alexander nodded. And he also once said, that boy doesn't need a doctor, he needs the army. Eric narrowed his eyes. He really said that? I used to work with Raymond. Back in 2012. He once pushed a kid into a juvenile facility for deviant behavior. I remember it clearly. Silence. Have you ever considered, your father might not be the role model you should try to surpass? Alexander asked gently. Eric gave a sad smile. I'm not trying to surpass him. I'm just trying to survive, in the city he built. That evening, Isabel sat in her office, watching the footage again. A slow-motion replay of the kick, blood spraying in black and white. The old man's face frozen in shock and humiliation. Lucy entered. "You're still watching that? You should stay away from that kind of negativity." "No," Isabel said. "I need to remember how it felt not to look away." "What do you want to do next?" "Contact social aid groups. I'll hire a private lawyer for Mr. Albert." "Anne." She paused, gaze distant. "I want to find out who the child he once saved was. Maybe, he never told anyone everything." Across the city, Eric opened the video again. But this time, he didn't skip. He looked straight into the old man's eyes, the eyes before the kick. "Why, didn't anyone teach me to stop?" he murmured. His phone buzzed. An unknown number. "Hello, this is Sunrise Senior Living Center. Are you an acquaintance of Mr. Albert?" "No," Eric was about to hang up. But the voice continued, "He just added your name to the list of approved visitors. Along with a note, maybe, he's not all bad." Eric froze. In the small hospital room, the ticking of the clock pounded into his mind like hammer strikes. Bellevue Hospital Medical Center. Room 14. Early morning. Pale sunlight filtered through the misted window, landing gently on Mr. Albert's wrinkled but peaceful face. Isabel sat beside the bed, an old notebook in her hands. Outside, sparrows perched here and there on the railing. The silence was so deep, one could hear the faint beep of the heart monitor. "I've told this before, you'll probably find it boring," the old man whispered, eyes fixed on the ceiling. Isabel shook her head. "Not at all. I want to know, because no one else ever cared to listen to you." The old man closed his eyes for a few seconds, then began. His voice was light as dust, but each word carried weight. "I used to be a carpenter. Not rich, not famous, but I lived well enough. My house was just outside Albany, on a hill. I built it myself, brick by brick, beam by beam." "Did you have a wife or children?" Isabel asked gently. "No. I was an only child. My parents died young. I lived alone. Until I met that boy." His voice dropped. "His name was Michael. A boy abandoned at a bus station. He had a high fever, coughing bad. I saw him while I was hauling lumber. You brought him home?" "I didn't think much. Just brought him back, gave him water, tucked him in. That night, he cried the whole time, calling out, 'Mom. Mom.'" I understood that feeling. Isabel gently held his hand. "The next day, the doctor said he had severe pneumonia. Needed emergency hospitalization. But no one wanted to pay for a kid with no family. And you?" "I sold my house. Took it apart plank by plank. Sold my tools. By the time I had enough money, he was in a coma. But in the end, he woke up." Isabel was silent, moved. "Did you ever try to find him again?" "I didn't need to," he replied. "I saw him live. That was enough." Beatrice, the young nurse, came in to check the 4-line. She said softly, "He just finished a transfusion, so he's a bit tired. You should let him rest a bit." Isabel nodded. Before leaving, she asked quietly, "Do you know what happened to Michael? Where he is now?" Mr. Albert closed his eyes. "I heard bits and pieces. He was adopted. Moved to New York City. Maybe, he's forgotten me by now." Out in the hallway, Isabel dialed a number. "Lucy, get in touch with Sullivan Law Firm. Ask them to look into a boy named Michael. Michael Green. Born around 1995. Emergency hospitalization in Albany around 1999. Look for private sponsorships on the record." Lucy hesitated. Who do you think he is? Isabel answered slowly, I think, we live in a city where too many people forget that someone once saved them. At the same time, Eric was sitting in his car, parked not far from the hospital. His hands clenched the steering wheel. His eyes were empty, fixed on the gate. Kevin, his old friend from the orphanage, suddenly approached and knocked on the window. Yo, he smiled lightly. I heard the old man didn't die. That so? Eric rolled down the window. Now the whole orphan crew's keeping tabs on me. Kevin leaned on the door. No. I just saw you here looking like someone who's completely lost. Do you know who he is? Eric asked. Kevin nodded. Yeah. He's the old man who gave you an apple when you were locked in the lumber shed at St. Joseph's Orphanage. I haven't forgotten. Eric froze. That was him? Yeah. I remember it clearly. We were locked up for sneaking Christmas cake. You had a fever, shivering. He was the only one who knocked on the wall and pushed an apple through the gap. Eric lowered his head. I don't remember. I only remember the cold. And the darkness. Kevin placed a hand on his shoulder. Now he's saved you again with his blood. Feels kinda backwards, doesn't it? At Sullivan Law Office, an assistant named Paul opened an old file, eyebrows furrowing. Ms. Turner, here it is. Michael Green, 1999, Albany. The one who paid his hospital bill was Mr. Albert Green. Isabel blinked. Do you have the address of the adoptive family? Yes. Transferred to New York City in 2002. The new legal guardian was Father Raymond Martin. Isabel shot to her feet. What? Raymond Martin? Paul nodded. Yes. There's a legal adoption file. The boy's name was changed to Eric Martin. The world collapsed. As if someone had sucked the gravity out of the air. Isabel stumbled back. The chair behind her toppled. No way. The old man Eric nearly kicked to death, is the one who once saved his life. She bolted out of the office, calling, Lucy. Get the car ready. Take me to the hospital. Now. Lucy stammered, what's going on? Something I wouldn't believe, if it hadn't just happened. Meanwhile, in his small apartment, Eric was watching the video of the kick for the 20-somethingth time. Each replay felt like a needle to the heart. Every time he saw the old man fall, something cracked louder in his mind. He stood up suddenly and punched the mirror. Glass shattered, slicing into his hand. But he didn't feel the pain. There was a knock at the door. He opened it. Isabel stood there, breathless, eyes red. I know, she said firmly. Eric looked at her like he'd just been slapped. He's the man who saved you, she said. When you were just a dying child in Albany. Eric staggered back. What are you saying? Michael Green. That's you. Your current father Raymond Martin adopted you after Mr. Albert spent every last cent to save your life. Eric reeled as if struck. No. That's not possible. Isabel held out the file. Here's the paperwork. Don't say you don't believe it. I didn't want to believe it either. He backed away, collapsing onto the floor. His hands trembled. I kicked the face of the man who saved me. Isabel spoke slowly, you didn't just kick him. You kicked the memory you should have been most grateful for. That day, New York City felt like it was burning up. From tiny bars in the South Bronx to high-level meetings on Wall Street, everyone was talking about one name, Eric Martin. But not as a police officer. As a symbol of unmasked brutality. Turner Tech Communications Office 8:05 a.m. Lucy Mitchell had just walked in when the big screen lit up with a bright red banner. Hashtag Mr. Albert over 2 million shares. Isabel, there's a wave of new video edits circulating, Lucy panted. We don't even need PR, social media's doing the work for us. Isabel sipped her coffee. Good. But remember, this isn't about taking one man down, it's about exposing a system. And now that system is shaking. Get me a list of witnesses who filed complaints against Eric but were ignored. She paused, her eyes sharp as blades. We're bringing them into the light. Manhattan Police Department, 9:20 a.m. Captain Douglas slammed a file onto the table, making Eric flinch. Do you know where your video is right now? Front page. Every platform. Twitter. TikTok. Even international news sites. Eric stood silent, eyes sunken. I didn't mean to cause trouble. I just kicked the face of the man who saved your life. Douglas flung a copy of the New York Times on the table. Front page, Mr. Albert's bloodied face. Headline in bold. The unknown hero, his enemy wore a badge. We've got new evidence, Douglas snapped. A man named Andrew, a street musician, claims you broke his arm last year. An old woman named Pamela from Jackson Heights says you shoved her and broke her ribs just for calling you cold. I couldn't always control. Exactly. And now you'll pay for your lack of control. Clara's Cafe, 10:45 a.m. Ethan, the freelance journalist who once spoke to Eric, was now sitting across from CNN senior editor Mary Lawson. I've got a certified copy of the adoption papers, Ethan said. Eric Martin is Michael Green. The child Mr. Albert sold his house to save. Mary stared at him. What? And that's the man he kicked in the face. The one who gave him a second chance at life. Mary clenched her fists. We're opening the evening news with that story. Air everything. No cuts. Eric's apartment, noon. Eric pulled the curtain shut. The light outside was too bright. Online, the video had been edited with slow-motion effects, each of his kicks replayed with somber music and angry commentary. You filthy bastard. A dog in a cop's uniform. No one kicks the face of the man who saved them unless they're a demon in disguise. Messages flooded his phone. All anonymous, just curses and threats. He threw the phone against the wall. It shattered. But the voices kept echoing in his head. Get the hell out of the force. We're gonna make you kneel. No one's crying for you, trash. The Sharks Fin restaurant, 1:20 p.m. Mr. Raymond Martin, Eric's father, was having lunch with a group of politicians. One of them, Congressman Lewis Owen, sighed. Raymond, this thing with your son, it's not gonna blow over easily. The media always exaggerates. No, this time it's real. And someone's dug up the adoption records. People know now Mr. Albert was the one who saved your son's life. Raymond clenched his fist. I won't let him be publicly executed like this. You can't stop the storm now. Raymond stood. Then I'll step down from the Internal Justice Committee. At least, to salvage the family name. Bellevue Hospital, room 14. Mr. Albert woke up, his eyes opening wide to the ceiling. Beatrice smiled. Feeling better? Did anyone come visit me? The nurse nodded. An old friend stopped by yesterday. Anne. Miss Isabel still comes every day. Albert gave a slight nod. And, the boy? Beatrice hesitated. He hasn't come back. I see, the old man said, his eyes drifting away. I won't force him. Evening, Eric's apartment. Eric drank. Alone. Under dim lights. The doorbell rang. He didn't answer. It rang again. He dragged himself up and opened the door. Kevin was standing there, holding a bag of food. Brought some of our old favorites. Remember chili con carne? Eric stood still, eyes bloodshot. You came to pity me? No. I came to show you that you're still human. Eric sat down, head in his hands. They're killing me, Kev. Every click, every comment. Kevin didn't respond, he just placed a hand on Eric's shoulder. They've been waiting for this moment to destroy me. No. They're just doing what you used to do to others without knowing the truth. Eric groaned. Then what the hell do I do now? Kevin sighed. Start by admitting you were wrong. CNN Evening News. Isabel sat in the guest room, facing the camera. We live in a city that sympathizes with the powerful, but turns its back on those who once held them up. The host asked, "Do you think Eric deserves forgiveness?" Isabel paused for a moment. "I can't forgive on Mr. Albert's behalf. But I think Eric isn't just that kick. He's also a twisted past. And if we don't help him make it right, we're part of the wrong too." New York City turned unusually cold. Clouds gathered in thick layers, ready to pour. Eric lay slumped on the sofa, empty liquor bottles scattered on the floor. His phone had been silent all afternoon. Until it rang. He groggily picked up, not bothering to check the caller ID. "Hello." A man's urgent voice came through. "Is this Eric Martin? This is Mount Sinai Hospital. Your mother, Mrs. Teresa Martin, was just brought into the ER. Cerebral stroke. Her condition is critical." Eric shot upright. "What? Is she, how is she now?" "We're trying to stabilize her blood pressure. But there's a serious problem." "What?" "She urgently needs a blood transfusion." "Oh, negative. It's extremely rare. We've contacted all blood banks across New York City, none have reserves left." Eric screamed, "So what now? Is she going to die?" "We're continuing to escalate through the national emergency system. But, you should prepare yourself." The phone slipped from Eric's hand. The room went dead silent. Only his ragged breathing remained. Mount Sinai Hospital emergency waiting room. Eric drove like a maniac to the hospital. He nearly slammed into the glass doors as he rushed in. A young Dr. Daniel Ross came out of the ER with a serious expression. "You're related to Mrs. Teresa?" Eric panted, "Yes. I'm her son. She suffered a brain hemorrhage. We've managed to temporarily stabilize it, but her blood pressure's still highly erratic. We need a rare blood transfusion." Eric shouted, "I know that already. I was told. Why hasn't anyone donated? This is freaking New York City." Daniel frowned. "Do you have the same blood type as her?" "No. I'm a positive." "Then biologically, you can't help." "Then, has anyone come to donate?" Daniel looked at the chart, then back at Eric. "Someone came in about half an hour ago. Same blood type. Already donated. We're currently transfusing." Eric exhaled, like he'd been pulled back from the edge of a cliff. "Who was it? Where is he?" Daniel handed him the donor slip. Eric looked down and froze. "Donor, Albert Green." He took a step back, his mouth trembling. "No, no way." Daniel furrowed his brow. "You know him?" Eric didn't answer. His eyes widened, chest heaving like he was getting punched over and over. A low buzzing filled his ears like crashing waves. "He saved my mother," he whispered. "Yes." And when we asked him why, he said just one sentence: "Her son once needed blood. Now I'm returning a bit of that debt." Eric sank into a waiting room chair, his hands over his head. His face buried in his palms. The scent of blood still lingered, not the kind that spills, but the kind that saves. His phone vibrated again. A text from Isabel. "I knew he donated. But I couldn't understand why. Now I do. He's a good man through and through." Another message, from Kevin. If after everything, he still wants to save you, what the hell are you waiting for? Blood recovery room 2 hours later. Mr. Albert sat resting, his arms still bandaged. His eyes were half closed. The door opened. Eric stood there, shaking. What did you do?" he asked, voice choked. Mr. Albert opened his eyes and gave a faint smile. "Son. I just did what a human being ought to do. Save another. But it was my mother. I'm the one who kicked you. I'm the reason you ended up in the hospital. And that's exactly why," he said slowly, "I wanted to show you, that kindness still exists, even in the dark." Eric dropped to his knees. "I don't deserve this." Mr. Albert gently placed a trembling hand on his head. "None of us are born deserving. We become deserving, by the choices we make." Outside the hospital late night. Eric walked out, head hung low. Isabel stood waiting by the car. "You know now?" she asked. "I do," Eric replied, his voice barely above a whisper. "My mother is alive. Because of him." Isabel nodded. "I don't understand him either." "Because he's not meant to be understood," Eric said. "He's meant to be felt." Isabel looked at him for a long moment. "What do you plan to do next?" "I don't know," he shook his head. "But for the first time, I don't see myself as the victim anymore." She stayed quiet, then nodded gently. "That's a good start." He looked into her eyes. "Thank you for not turning your back on me." Isabel turned away. "I used to live off anger too, Eric. But someone once told me, if you hold on to anger for too long, in the end, you're just setting yourself on fire." Eric's apartment late night. He sat alone. No lights. No alcohol. No phone. Only a laptop screen in front of him. On it, the video The Kick once again. He watched it. But this time, he wasn't angry. He didn't justify it. He wasn't outraged. He looked straight into Mr. Albert's eyes. The old man looked at him, not with hatred, but with compassion. Eric burst into tears. Nighttime therapy hotline 1:42 a.m. The phone rang. Late night therapy center. "This is Clara. How can I help you?" Eric gripped the phone so tightly his hand shook. "This is Eric. Eric Martin. I want to book a session." Clara wrote quickly. "We have a slot next Tuesday evening. Are you available?" He closed his eyes. "Not sure. But, for the first time, I want to take a step forward." Eric walked into his empty apartment. The window was slightly open, and a cold breeze blew into the living room, stirring up old newspapers on the table like memories that wouldn't leave him alone. He sat down on the worn-out sofa, hands trembling as he opened his laptop. The video of the old man being kicked appeared on screen, the last time he had watched it. The sound of his steel-toe boots hitting the old man's face echoed in his head like a haunting melody with no end. Eric's eyes were bloodshot, his heart pounding so loudly he could hear every beat. He whispered to himself, "Why did I do that? I've become the kind of man I used to hate the most." The phone rang again, startling him. He glanced at the screen, "Clara, from the therapy center." He didn't answer. In the dark, Eric stood up and walked to the large mirror at the end of the room. He looked into the mirror, staring at himself, red-eyed like a caged beast. "Who is this?" he asked, voice choking. "Is this me, or someone else?" He sighed and rubbed his face, as if trying to scrub off the invisible guilt clinging to his skin. "Eric," a voice echoed in his head. "Do you remember how your mother cried when you ran away? Do you remember the crushing loneliness at the orphanage?" He closed his eyes, and the haunting images returned, the beatings from Padre Raymond, the scornful looks from other kids, the pain of losing his mother like a knife through the heart. He sighed. So why did I do that to the old man? To Mr. Albert? The only one who ever gave me a chance to live. The phone rang again. This time, he answered. Hello, this is Clara. Are you ready for your session? Eric choked up. I don't know. I'm scared. That's a normal feeling. But the first step is the most important. He fell silent, eyes staring into the void. I want to make things right. But I'm scared I can't. The next day, Eric arrived at the counseling center. The brown wooden door opened like a door of fate. Inside, warm yellow lights bathed Clara's kind face, a woman in her 40s, her voice gentle and soothing. You came. I've been waiting a long time, she said with a smile. Eric sat down and quietly told his life story, the years in the orphanage, the beatings, the trauma, and the day he kicked a frail old man on the street. Clara listened without interrupting. When you did that, she said gently, you weren't just hitting the old man. You were hitting the pain inside yourself. But I can't forgive myself, Eric sighed. I feel like I'm chewing on guilt every day. It won't let go. Clara nodded. Time will help. But you need to allow yourself to live with the truth. And most importantly, you must learn to forgive yourself. Eric looked at his trembling hands. I used to think forgiveness was weakness. On the contrary, Clara smiled, forgiveness is strength. It's the first step toward rebirth. That evening, Eric returned to his apartment. He turned on an old radio and listened to a melancholy blues song. The music seemed to stir all his tangled emotions. He walked to the window and looked out at the gloomy city. A knock on the door. He opened it to find Kevin standing there, eyes gentle. You doing okay, buddy? Kevin asked. Eric let out a dry laugh. I'm trying. For the first time in my life, I want to try. Kevin placed a hand on his shoulder. Then you've started to heal. The next day, Eric called Isabel. I want to see Mr. Albert. I need to apologize in person. Isabel smiled, I'll take you there. That afternoon, at the Sunrise Senior Living Center, Eric stepped into a small garden. Mr. Albert was watering the plants, his back bent, but his eyes still bright. Eric knelt down, tears streaming. I don't deserve your blood. I don't deserve forgiveness. The old man gave a warm smile and placed a trembling hand on his shoulder. I've already forgiven you, he said. But forgiveness isn't meant to give you peace of mind. Forgiveness without change means nothing. Eric looked up at him, heart overwhelmed. I will change. I will start again. Isabel stepped into the garden, her eyes lighting up at the sight. You finally met each other, she said gently. Mr. Albert nodded. You did a good thing, not giving up. Eric turned to her, thank you. If it weren't for you, I might not have made it here. Isabel smiled, everyone deserves a chance. Sometimes we just need someone to pull us back from the edge. Kevin arrived too, carrying a few small toys for the center's play area. You're looking better, man, Kevin said, eyes bright. Eric smiled softly. For the first time in years, I don't feel alone. They walked together into the garden, where children from the old orphanage often came to play with Mr. Albert. Eric sat with them, his voice gentle, different from before. You know, when I was your age, I was just like you, lacking love, living in fear. A little girl named Mia looked up. What did you do when you were sad? Eric thought for a moment. I used to lash out and hurt others. But now I'm learning to breathe deeply, to face my emotions instead of running away. Another boy, Louis, asked innocently, were you scared? He looked at them with warmth in his eyes. Being scared is normal. But don't let fear control you. Isabel told Mr. Albert about her plan to open a small woodworking workshop in the garden. A place where the children could learn a trade and play freely. This will be a second home for the children, she said with hope in her voice. Mr. Albert smiled, watching Eric play joyfully with the kids. For the first time, I see New York City, feel warm, he whispered. Several children ran around, laughing and chatting. The air was filled with music and laughter like a miracle born from life and forgiveness. Eric stood up and looked at the garden one last time before stepping into a new, promising life. I'm sorry I didn't understand before, he whispered. I won't let that happen again. Mr. Albert nodded. You've chosen the right path. Isabel placed a hand on Eric's shoulder. This is just the beginning. That meeting was not just the end of something, but the beginning of a new chapter, a life where past mistakes were forgiven, new hopes were born, and compassion was lit from the deepest wounds. 2 months later, since the final meeting at Sunrise Senior Living Center, New York City still held a chill in the air, but for many hearts, it was starting to feel warmer. Eric stood before the rusty gate of St. Joseph's Orphanage, the place where he had grown up with haunting memories and deep pain. Today, he wore no police uniform, no heavy steel-toe boots on his feet. This is my new home, he murmured, as if reminding himself. A middle-aged woman named Margaret, the manager of the orphanage, came out to greet him. Welcome, Eric. We heard you've changed a lot. The children here are very happy to have a new protector. Eric smiled, feeling for the first time in his life not judged, but accepted. On his first day of work, he introduced himself to the children with a rare gentleness in his voice. I'm not a hero or a police officer anymore. I'm just a friend, an older brother ready to listen. The children looked at him silently, their eyes filled with curiosity and admiration. A little boy named Paul raised his hand shyly. Do you know martial arts? Eric nodded. I do. And I'll teach you self-defense, and how to control your emotions. In the days that followed, he became not just a protector, but a guide in martial arts and emotional therapy. There were no sirens or orders, only patience and sincerity. One evening, while the children sat around him listening to stories, a little girl named Lily asked. Eric, were you scared when you started over? He smiled, his gaze tender. Yes. But being scared doesn't mean you can't move forward. Isabel often came to visit, bringing gifts and words of encouragement. You're doing great, Eric, she said. You're building a new future not just for yourself, but for these children too. He replied with a genuine smile. Meanwhile, in Isabel's garden, the small woodworking shop had been completed and fully equipped. Even at his age, Mr. Albert still worked every day cutting wood, repairing details with care. The sounds of saws and hammers blended with the children's laughter, echoing through the space. One day, he looked up and saw Eric playing with the children, joy and hope shining in his eyes. For the first time, he whispered again, I see New York City, feel warm. His face glowed with contentment. One evening, while everyone was gathered inside the workshop, Isabel stood up to speak. I want to thank Mr. Albert, Eric, and all the children for teaching us a lesson in kindness and forgiveness. Everyone applauded warmly. Eric looked around, heart full. He knew he had come a long way from darkness into light. We all can start over, he said. As long as we never give up on ourselves. This story gives us a profound lesson about the power of forgiveness and inner transformation. And no matter how dark or painful the beginning may be, people can still choose a path of goodness if they are willing to face their mistakes and bravely work to correct them. Forgiveness is not only a gift we give others, it is a way to free ourselves from the weight of guilt and resentment. Love, compassion, and empathy are the guiding lights that help us find meaning and peace in life.
If you enjoyed this story, we invite you to give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Your support motivates us to keep bringing heartwarming stories almost every day. We are very grateful for your support. See you soon.